40. That number, a point on the horizon, isn't it? A milestone that many approach with hesitation, some with a sigh, others with joy. Not for the reasons you might think, not for some sudden burst of youthful vigor, nor for the accumulation of worldly success, but because, at this point, something remarkable happens within us, a shift that awakens the soul in ways we never expected. You see, 40 marks the crossing of an invisible threshold where the mind, like a well-worn road, begins to give way to something deeper, something more real. It is at 40 that we begin to understand the profound truth: we are not just the sum of our efforts, our possessions, or our achievements. We are not defined by our past mistakes, nor by the anxiety of what is to come. No, at 40, we start to let go of the grand illusion we held so tightly to in our youth. The illusion that we must chase for a job, a title, approval, the fleeting taste of happiness. This is not to say that life before 40 was in vain, or that it lacked purpose. Quite the opposite. But life before 40 is like the early chapters of a novel, where the plot is still thickening, and the protagonist has not yet come into their full awareness. At 40, we come to a realization. The realization that we've been living with one foot in the future and the other in the past, all the while neglecting the true miracle of life, which is now. As a child, we begin by asking, "What is this?" We marvel at the world. The sun rises and sets, we watch the birds take flight, and we wonder at the vastness of it all. As we grow, we are told to stop wondering and start doing. We're taught to grow up, to focus on goals, to build a life. But in doing so, we forget how to marvel, how to simply be with the world as it is. The first half of life is a preparation for the second. It's a time to learn, to accumulate knowledge, and yes, even to build a world, the world we think we want. What happens when we've checked off the boxes and lived the so-called successful life? At 40, we are no longer so easily deceived by the world's demands. We start to ask the real questions, not, "What must I do next?" but, "Who am I beneath all of this? What is the meaning of this life beyond the hustle?" We reach 40, and we realize that the real answer was never out there. It was always within us. The truth is that life begins when we stop trying so hard to live it, when we stop struggling with the current, and instead allow ourselves to float in the river of existence. At 40, we begin to understand that control is a mirage, that effort for the sake of effort is a trap, and that happiness isn't something we catch, but something we allow. We stop holding on to the illusions of time and security, and we start to rest in the eternal now. The mind begins to calm at 40. It is not the same mind that it was at 20. It no longer races to the future, scrambling for what's next, for the next promotion, the next achievement, the next perfect moment. Now, at 40, there is more room for silence, more room for being. This does not mean that life has become dull or meaningless, quite the opposite. Life becomes more vivid, more alive, more fully experienced, because we no longer feel the need to fill every moment with distraction. We begin to realize that the world is not a problem to be solved, but a mystery to be lived. When we are young, we chase time. We try to control it, to shape it to our desires. We think that if we can just get it right, we will finally be at peace. But 40 offers us a paradox. Time, like the tide, will never be controlled. The more we resist, the more it slips through our fingers. But at 40, we finally stop fighting the tide. We let go of our attempts to shape time, and in that letting go, we discover that time has been shaping us all along. At 40, we realize that we are not the things we own, nor the positions we hold, nor the image we've created for ourselves. These are all fleeting, ever-changing, and illusory. Our true self, the I that is eternal and unchanging, is not defined by achievements or failures. It is not the me that we've worked so hard to become. The real self is that which watches all of this. The body, the thoughts, the roles, with a quiet understanding, with no need to claim ownership. We are not our thoughts, we are the space in which they arise. This shift, this realization, brings with it a deep peace. No longer do we cling to the future as if it were salvation. No longer do we fear the past as if it were a mistake. We realize that the only moment we ever truly have is now. And it is within this moment that life truly begins. It is the awakening of the soul, the understanding that we are not the controllers of life, but the participants, the witnesses, the experiences. But let me make one thing clear. This is not something that can be achieved by simply wishing for. It comes with the passage of time, with the ebb and flow of our lives. It is a process of shedding the layers that have been placed upon us, layer by layer, until we finally stand naked in the present moment, unencumbered by our past, unburdened by our future. At 40, the world may not change. The circumstances of our lives may remain the same. But our relationship with the world has changed. We are no longer the anxious, striving person we once were. We are now the witness, the lover, the participant. And this is when life begins. So, my friend, if you are near 40 or have passed it, know this: you have only just begun. The second half of life is not about seeking or achieving, but about letting go. It is the time to awaken to the miracle of simply being alive. It is the time to stop trying to shape life to your will and to begin dancing with the flow of it, trusting that in doing so you will find what you've always sought: peace, clarity, and joy. And remember this: life is not about being fixed or perfect or complete. It is about the unfolding, the journey, the continuous discovery. Now, let's pause for a moment. There is something profound that begins to unfold at 40, something that can only be felt, not explained. It is an understanding that emerges from the depths of our being. For those who have awakened, the urgency to get it right begins to dissolve. You see, for much of our lives, we were taught that we were running a race, that we had to reach some arbitrary finish line. But at 40, something strange happens. We begin to realize that there is no race at all. The finish line, it's nothing more than a mirage on the horizon, constantly shifting as we approach. We no longer feel the weight of urgency pressing upon us, the need to prove ourselves, to achieve more, to be more. All of that begins to fade. And with it, we discover something extraordinary: the profound beauty of the present moment. This understanding doesn't come from reading books, nor from listening to lectures. It comes from living, from experience, and from seeing how each year is like a layer peeled away, revealing the simple truth: we are here, and that is enough. When we let go of striving, we give room for life itself to flow through us. No longer do we need to chase it, for it is already here, waiting to be embraced. This is why life begins at 40, because the pursuit of life itself ceases. You no longer look outward for meaning, for approval, for success. The very act of looking is replaced by being with the world as it is, as it presents itself to you, without judgment, without expectation. The awakened soul understands that there is no need to shape life into something it is not. Life is perfect in its imperfection. Consider the analogy of a river. In our youth, we swim upstream, struggling against the current, believing that the goal lies somewhere far ahead, at the end of the river. We fight against the flow, convinced that if we can just get to that distant shore, we will find peace. But when we reach 40, we understand that the river is the journey, not the destination. We stop fighting the current. We learn to float, to trust, to move with the flow instead of against it. And in that surrender, we find peace. It is not the peace of resignation or indifference. It is the peace of knowing that everything is in its rightful place, that life is unfolding perfectly, whether we are aware of it or not. There is a serenity in surrendering to this truth. The world is not broken, it does not need fixing. It is simply as it is, and we too are as we are, perfect in our imperfection. It is also at 40 that we begin to realize that we are not separate from the world, not isolated individuals struggling to survive, but an inseparable part of the vast interconnected web of existence. We are like the leaf on the tree, nourished by the sun, the rain, the earth. We are not the root, nor the trunk, nor the branches. Yet without us, the tree would be incomplete. At 40, we stop seeing ourselves as isolated beings separate from the whole. We realize that we are the whole. This understanding begins to shape the way we move through the world. Our relationships, our work, our dreams, all of them are no longer driven by a need for validation, but by the desire to participate in the unfolding of life. There is no longer a sense of, what am I going to get out of this? And yet, this doesn't mean that we stop seeking growth or transformation. Far from it. Life at 40 is not about stagnation. It is about becoming more and more aware of the fleeting nature of all things, aware of the impermanence of our existence, aware of the deep, silent wisdom that lies beneath the noise of our daily lives. At 40, we stop seeking external growth and begin to cultivate inner growth. We focus on deepening our understanding of the self, of the world, and of the mystery that is life. We realize that every experience, even those we once deemed as failures, is a gift. Life itself is a teacher, and every moment is an opportunity to learn, to grow, and to evolve. The awakened soul understands that nothing is wasted, that even our struggles are part of the journey. And it is here, in this space of surrender and awareness, that we finally learn what it means to live authentically. To live authentically is to live without masks, without pretense, without the need to conform to societal expectations. It is to live from a place of deep knowing, where the external world no longer dictates our sense of worth. It is to live as we are, without fear of judgment, without fear of rejection, and without fear of time running out. In the years before 40, we may have lived in fear. Fear of not being good enough, fear of not achieving enough, fear of not measuring up. But at 40, we realize that none of this matters. We are enough. We always have been. The key to a fulfilling life is not in doing more, but in being more. It is in becoming more aligned with our true nature, our true self. And this is why, my friends, life actually begins at 40 for the awakened soul. So, if you are approaching 40, or if you have already passed this milestone, take a deep breath and know that you have just begun. The second half of life is not a time of decay or decline, but a time of blossoming, of awakening to the fullness of your being. You are no longer the child chasing the future. You are the wise elder, rooted in the present, fully awake to the beauty of the world and your place within it. And so, I invite you to embrace this moment. Embrace the peace that comes with letting go. Embrace the wisdom that comes with surrender. Embrace the freedom that comes with realizing that you are not separate from the world, but one with it. For this is when life truly begins, when we stop striving and start living. Now, I invite you to consider something quite extraordinary. At 40, you begin to feel the weight of life's illusions lifting. The illusion that you must constantly strive, constantly achieve, constantly prove. In youth, we chase after goals, thinking that each one we achieve will bring us the happiness we seek. But at 40, we begin to see the truth. The chase itself is the trap. The more we chase, the further we run from the present moment, and thus from life itself. Let's think about it. When you were younger, you perhaps thought that happiness was a destination. If only I could land that job, own that house, buy that car, then I will be happy. You looked ahead, and the future always seemed just beyond reach. But now, at 40, you start to understand that the future is not where happiness lives. It is the present moment, the now, that holds everything you've been seeking. You see, when we are young, we live as though life is something to be controlled. We set goals, we plan, we push forward. But what happens when those plans fail? It's like climbing a mountain, reaching the top, only to realize there is another peak just beyond the horizon and another after that. And so we climb again and again, never stopping to rest, never stopping to see the view. At 40, something shifts. You begin to see that life is not a mountain to be climbed, but a river to be flowed with. It's not about reaching the top, but about finding peace in the movement itself. The truth is that the destination is always here, right now. The only moment that truly exists is this one, and it's only in the surrender to that moment that we begin to find the peace we've been chasing our whole lives. The mind, at 40, begins to soften. It starts to relinquish its tight grip on the world. It no longer demands that everything be controlled, that everything be fixed. Instead, in fact, it is the impermanence of life that makes it so precious. We do not need to hold on to things, because they will slip through our fingers anyway. All that we have, we must release. And in releasing, we find that we are free. This is the great paradox of life. The more we try to hold on, the more we lose. But when we let go, we find that life expands in ways we never imagined. It is as if the universe is saying, "Let me show you what happens when you stop forcing, when you stop trying to control the flow." At 40, we learn to stop resisting the river, and instead, we begin to float. We begin to trust that the current will carry us exactly where we need to go. This trust in the flow of life is a profound gift. It is not a surrender born of weakness, but a surrender born of wisdom. It is the wisdom that comes with understanding that we are not in charge of the universe, nor should we be. The universe does not need our control. It flows perfectly on its own, and we are simply part of that flow. At 40, we come to understand that we are not separate from the universe, but one with it. This realization shifts everything. It shifts the way we interact with the world, with others, and with ourselves. We begin to see people not as objects to be used or controlled, but as fellow travelers on the same journey. We begin to listen, to understand, to connect. Our relationships deepen, not because we work harder at them, but because we allow them to unfold naturally. We stop trying to force them into predefined shapes and instead let them be what they are. And this, my friends, is what it means to be awakened. The awakened soul is not someone who has figured everything out or has all the answers. No, the awakened soul is simply someone who has stopped searching for answers outside of themselves. The awakened soul has let go of the need to control, to manipulate, to push. The awakened soul has learned to sit quietly and listen to the whisper of the universe, to feel the pulse of life moving through them, and to trust that it will lead them exactly where they need to go. This is why life truly begins at 40. 40, because it is at this point that the striving, the searching, the pushing, and the pulling, that life is not something to be done. And it is only in experiencing life fully, with all of its ups and downs, its beauty and its pain, that we begin to understand its true nature. There is no final destination. There is no end point. There is only the journey, and the journey is the destination. And it is when we stop trying to get somewhere, when we stop trying to become someone, that we finally arrive. We arrive at the truth of who we are. Not the person we thought we should be, but the person we are at our core. And that person, my friends, is enough. What would happen if you stopped trying to shape it into something it's not? What would happen if you simply allowed yourself to be? For it is in this space of allowing, of surrender, that you will discover the true joy of life. It is at this moment that you will realize that life has already begun. Let us go deeper, for there is something profoundly liberating that happens when we reach this age of 40. When we are young, we tend to feel isolated, as if we are individuals living separate lives, navigating a world full of obstacles to overcome. We see ourselves as lone travelers, striving to carve out a space for ourselves amidst the chaos. But at 40, a subtle shift occurs, the understanding that we are not isolated at all. We are participants in an endless dance, a dance in which we are both the dancer and the dance itself. It is almost like the realization that a tree does not need to strive to grow. It simply grows. A tree does not worry about its branches reaching the sky or its roots digging deeper into the earth. It grows because it is aligned with the forces of nature, with the flow of life. It does not struggle to become more than it is. It just is. And it is this deep alignment, this surrender to the natural rhythms of life, that we finally begin to understand at 40. It is as if life is like a river, and we spend our younger years trying to control the flow, trying to steer the course, thinking that if we don't, the river will sweep us away. We are terrified of letting go, of allowing the current to take us wherever it may go. But when we reach 40, we begin to sense something. The river is not our enemy. It is not something we must fight against. It is something we are a part of. We are the river. And in this realization, we begin to float rather than swim against the current. We begin to trust the flow, and in that trust, we find freedom. Freedom, you see, is not a destination to be achieved. It is not the result of some external circumstance. The ego is the false self, the me, that we cling to, the person we think we are. But the truth is that this self is not who we truly are. We are not the roles we play, the titles we hold, or the judgments we have about ourselves. We are the awareness beneath it all. And it is this awareness, this spaciousness within us, that is free. The identity we spent so many years constructing starts to lose its grip on us. We begin to see that we are not our past, not our failures, not our successes, and not our plans for the future. We are the stillness between thoughts, the silence beneath the noise. The more we let go of our attachment to the me, the persona we've built, the more we come into contact with our true nature. And in this coming into contact, we find a profound peace, a peace that has nothing to do with circumstances, but everything to do with the realization that we are whole, complete, and enough as we are. This peace is not born of escape, not the peace of running away from life's struggles or difficulties. It is a peace that arises from embracing life as it is, with all of its challenges, with all of its contradictions. It is the peace that comes with accepting that we do not have to control life. We can stop trying to shape it into something it is not, and simply allow it to unfold as it will. And in this understanding, we find not resignation, but deep, profound acceptance. Life is not meant to be perfect. It is meant to be lived, to be experienced fully, in all its messiness and mystery. When we stop striving for perfection, when we stop seeking to make life something it is not, we begin to experience it in its fullness. At 40, we realize that the pursuit of happiness is a fruitless endeavor. Happiness is not something we acquire, something we chase. It is something we allow. The moment we stop looking for happiness outside of ourselves, we begin to find it within. Happiness is not a result of achieving anything, but a recognition of the beauty that is already here, in this very moment as it is. But let's take this one step further. What happens when we come to realize? What if the goal of life is not to be happy, but simply to be? To exist without striving, to live without the burden of expectation. This too is a revelation that comes at 40. Life, at its core, is about being. It is about stepping into the flow of life and simply allowing it to carry us. The awakening at 40 is the awakening to the truth of our being. We realize that we are not the roles we play, not the identities we've created, not the stories we've told ourselves. We are the awareness behind it all, the consciousness that experiences life. This awareness is not bound by time. It is not bound by the limitations of the body or the mind. It is eternal, ever-present, and ever-changing. At 40, we begin to feel the truth of our eternal nature. We begin to see that we are not separate from life, from the universe. We are part of it. We are the universe experiencing it. And in this recognition, we find that everything is as it should be. Life is perfect in its imperfection. We are perfect in our imperfection. And in this understanding, we find the freedom to simply be, to simply live, and to simply enjoy the unfolding of existence. So, as you move into the second half of life, I invite you to reflect on this. You are not the person you thought you were. You are not the roles you play, nor the titles you hold. You are the awareness beneath it all. And this awareness, my friend, is freedom. At 40, you are no longer bound by the illusions of time, of achievement, of control. You are free to be who you are, to live in the moment, and to embrace the flow of life with open arms. Life has already begun, and in this moment, in the present, you are whole, you are enough, and you are free.